The galaxy had always operated under a delicate balance, an unspoken understanding among its myriad races that the power dynamics were structured in favor of the oldest and most advanced civilizations. The code, an invisible set of rules, governed everything. It was an agreement that ensured the peaceful coexistence of species, the preservation of ancient knowledge, and the controlled exchange of technology. Violation of the code was unthinkable, until humans arrived. Humanity had been an insignificant speck in the grand cosmos. Their home, Earth, was a backwater planet in an unremarkable solar system on the fringes of the galaxy. When humans first made contact with the Galactic Council, they were laughed off. To the advanced species, humans were a primitive race, no more dangerous than a curious child with a toy gun. They had just discovered the stars, but the ancient races had mastered them long ago. However, that assumption was about to be shattered. It started with the discovery of a strange anomaly in the farthest reaches of human space. What began as a routine survey by an exploratory vessel led to something far more dangerous, something that could unravel the entire galactic order. Captain Maria Delgado stood on the bridge of the Ascendant, her heart racing as she stared at the swirling, impossible energy readings flashing across the starboard console. Her crew, a mix of seasoned spacefarers and rookie scientists, shared a similar sense of unease. They had encountered an unknown force, an anomaly so complex it defied understanding. But it wasn't the anomaly itself that caused the panic, it was what they'd found within it. The anomaly was not a natural phenomenon. It had been placed. And it had been placed by someone who was not human. But why hadn't the Council detected it? Why had it gone unnoticed for so long? "Captain," said Lieutenant Aaron, his voice strained, "we've found something else. Something hidden within the energy field. It's a library. A library." The very idea sent a chill down Maria's spine. In galactic terms, a library wasn't just a collection of books. It was a repository of knowledge, often containing priceless data from extinct or nearly forgotten civilizations. Some libraries were so vast that they could take centuries to explore fully. To find one hidden within an anomaly of this magnitude, and on the edge of human space, was unheard of. But what disturbed Maria most was the unmistakable signature of a long-lost race, one older than any known species. The Council had warned humanity that knowledge came at a price. The code was designed to protect the galaxy from those who might misuse such power. But what if this library contained forbidden knowledge? What if the humans, naive and unprepared as they were about to stumble upon something that could shatter everything? A crackling noise interrupted her thoughts as a transmission broke through the static. The voice on the other end was one she recognized immediately. "Captain Delgado," said the voice of Ambassador Zinna, a diplomat from one of the most powerful species in the galaxy, the Prathians. "What you found. It is far more dangerous than you realize. The code cannot be broken." Maria's grip tightened around the console. The Prathians had been the protectors of the code for millennia, ensuring that no species could breach its boundaries. If they were contacting her directly, it meant they had already been watching. "We have no intention of breaking any code, Ambassador," she said, her voice calm but resolute. "We've discovered something, and we intend to understand it." Zinna's tone was grim. "You don't understand. That library isn't just a relic. It's a weapon, an artifact that could unmake the fabric of the galaxy. You have no idea what you've uncovered, Captain." The transmission cut out, and Maria stared at the now silent comm screen. She turned to her crew. "Prepare for extraction. We're leaving. Now." But as the Ascendant powered up its engines to retreat, a loud hum filled the ship. The very air seemed to vibrate with a strange energy as a massive, unseen force began to pull them back toward the heart of the anomaly. Something was reaching out. And it was not friendly. The Ascendant shook violently as it was drawn deeper into the anomaly. Captain Maria Delgado's knuckles turned white around the armrest, her teeth gritted as the ship's hull creaked under the strain. The crew scrambled to secure themselves, their faces a mix of fear and confusion. The comms were dead, the familiar hum of the engines now replaced by a low, unearthly resonance that seemed to reverberate within their very bones. "Captain, we're being pulled in," Lieutenant Aaron shouted, his voice cracking as the sensors failed one by one. "We've lost all external communications and our thrusters are at max output, but we're not moving. It's like something is holding us here." Maria's heart raced. They had barely left the edges of human space, and now they were trapped in the heart of an ancient mystery, one that none of them fully understood. The idea that the anomaly might be a weapon, as Ambassador Zinna had suggested, seemed less like a paranoid exaggeration and more like an ominous truth with every passing second. "Get the secondary power grid online. Find anything that can help us break free," she ordered, trying to keep her voice steady, despite the chaos that surrounded her. As the crew scrambled, Maria's thoughts lingered on the library they had found within the anomaly. It felt like a curse, a gift hidden in plain sight, and yet, the galaxy's most powerful races feared its knowledge. It wasn't simply the repository of an ancient civilization, it was the very essence of something far older and more dangerous. The Prathians had warned her, but they had said nothing about what would happen if the library were accessed. Suddenly, the entire ship shuddered, and the lights flickered before going out completely. Darkness enveloped the crew, leaving only the faint glow of emergency beacons. The humming sound intensified, and a new presence made itself known, an overwhelming weight that pressed down on them all. "What's happening?" Officer Tan, the ship's scientist, gasped as she fumbled with the emergency controls. I think we're inside the library." The realization struck like a bolt of lightning. The anomaly wasn't just a cloak for the library, it was the library. Somehow, the very fabric of space had been manipulated to trap them inside an ancient structure that defied all known laws of physics. Their ship was now surrounded by walls of swirling energy, corridors of light, and distant, incomprehensible shapes that seemed to warp and shift with each passing moment. "We need to find a way out," Maria said, her voice sharp. But even as she spoke, a chill ran down her spine, and she instinctively knew that leaving was no longer an option. They had breached something far too old and powerful for them to understand. The fabric of the universe itself seemed to have bent, reshaped by whatever intelligence had crafted this place. Suddenly, the humming stopped. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a deep, profound silence. For a moment, it felt as if the entire galaxy had frozen, waiting. Then, the voice came. Not through the comms, not through any external system, but from within. It was a voice that wasn't really a voice at all, an overwhelming presence in her mind, reverberating like an ancient thunderclap. "You are here," it intoned, a sound that filled her skull and yet came from everywhere. "You have found the key." Maria froze, her mind racing to comprehend the impossible. She wasn't sure if the voice was speaking directly to her or to the entire crew, but it didn't matter. It was clear that whatever intelligence resided within this library was aware of them. And it had been waiting. Before she could respond, the ship's console flickered to life, displaying a series of alien symbols, symbols that danced across the screen, twisting into shapes she couldn't process. They were too ancient, too complex. Then the symbols began to change. They formed a message, clear and precise. "The code is broken. Humanity has been chosen." The words sent a shiver through the crew. They had not only found the library, they had unlocked it. And in doing so, they had triggered something far more significant than they realized. Maria stared at the screen, her breath caught in her throat. Ambassador Zinna's warning echoed in her mind, "The code cannot be broken." It was clear now that the library was more than a simple artifact, it was the foundation of the code itself. The very thing that had kept the galaxy's balance in place for millennia. They hadn't just discovered the key to untold knowledge, they had just become the first species in history to break the galactic code. And in that moment, everything changed. The message echoed in Captain Maria Delgado's mind like a pulse, reverberating with an unsettling finality: "The code is broken. Humanity has been chosen." Her thoughts scrambled, struggling to grasp the enormity of what they had just stumbled upon. The words on the screen seemed to shimmer, almost as if they were alive, flickering in and out of focus. She wasn't sure if it was the ship systems malfunctioning or if the anomaly itself was somehow communicating directly with her. Either way, the implications were clear. The balance that had kept the galaxy at peace for millennia had just been disrupted. "Captain, this isn't good," Lieutenant Aaron said, his voice strained. "The energy signatures are changing. The anomaly, it's expanding. We're no longer alone." Maria snapped out of her stupor, her heart pounding. What Aaron said was true. Through the viewing ports of the Ascendant, she saw it. The very fabric of the anomaly, once a dark, swirling mass of energy, was now shifting. The shapes inside it were growing more defined. Figures, massive, ancient shapes, loomed in the distance, and they were getting closer. It wasn't just the library that was awakening. The anomaly was alive, and it was reacting to their presence. "We need to get out of here, now!" Maria barked. "Full reverse, now! We can't afford to stay any longer." But as the crew scrambled to initiate the emergency retreat, the ship's systems sputtered. The thrusters that had once been their last hope of escape now refused to respond. The vessel was stuck in the heart of the ancient structure, as if the library itself was holding them captive. Then, as the silence returned, a new transmission blared through the comm system. This time, it wasn't just a voice. It was a wave of energy that flooded the Ascendant, warping the air around them as if someone, was trying to communicate directly with their minds. "Humans," the voice reverberated, a deep, resonant tone that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You have broken the code. The Council will not tolerate this transgression." The crew members gasped in unison. It wasn't just one voice, they heard multiple voices layered over each other, all speaking in unison. The sound was maddening, like the echoes of an ancient power too vast to understand. Who are you?" Maria asked, her voice trembling, but defiant. "We are the architects," the voice replied. "We have existed long before the Council, long before the Code. You have awakened us." Maria's eyes widened. The architects. They were a race of beings spoken of only in myth, fabled creators, theorized to have shaped the very foundations of galactic civilization. Their existence was thought to be a mere legend, whispered in hushed tones among the most ancient species. But if the legends were true, then these beings were far more powerful than anything she or her crew could have imagined. "And what do you want with us?" Maria demanded, finding her voice despite the fear gnawing at her insides. She wasn't sure if she wanted the answer, but she had to ask. "You are the first to break the code, the first to claim the key. You will be judged." The word "judged" sent a cold shiver through the room. Maria's hands clenched into fists. Whatever was coming next, they were not prepared for it. Before she could speak again, a series of harsh, clicking sounds echoed through the ship's hull. The air vibrated with an unnatural force. The viewing screens flickered, and a new set of symbols appeared. This time, it was not just a message, but a map. A map to something hidden deep within the heart of the galaxy, a place that had been locked away for eons. "The Council will arrive soon," the architect's voice continued. "And when they do, they will decide if humanity is worthy of this knowledge, or if you will be wiped from existence." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving only an unsettling silence. The hum of the anomaly resumed, though now it seemed far more ominous. The entire crew stood frozen, unable to move or speak. The weight of what they had done crashed down upon them all. Humanity had broken the code, and now they were about to face the consequences. "We need to prepare," Maria finally said, her voice low and grim. "The Council will come for us. We don't know how much time we have, but we need to be ready." "But Captain, what if they're right?" Lieutenant Aaron asked, his face pale. "What if humanity isn't ready for this kind of knowledge?" Maria turned to face him, her expression hardening. "We don't have a choice now. The galaxy has already seen what we've done. But we can't let them take this from us. We've already unlocked the secrets of the architects. We need to learn from it, or humanity may never survive what's coming." As the crew scrambled to prepare for what was to come, the Ascendant drifted deeper into the heart of the anomaly, the pulse of the architects echoing in their minds. The Council was coming. And when they arrived, humanity's fate would be decided. The Ascendant was on the precipice of oblivion. As Maria Delgado paced the bridge, the weight of the impending judgment settled heavily on her shoulders. Every member of her crew was tense, their eyes darting between the control panels, now flashing with erratic readings. The ship trembled slightly as if the entire structure was on the edge of some great collapse, except it wasn't the ship itself that was at risk. It was the very fabric of their existence. The architect's words were still ringing in her ears, "You will be judged." But by whom? The Council was legendary, a coalition of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful races. They were the keepers of the Code, an ancient system of laws and agreements that had prevented countless wars and ensured the delicate peace that had lasted for millennia. No one, in all of recorded history, had ever dared to break the Code. But now, humanity had done it, and the consequences were unimaginable. "We have to be ready," Maria said, turning to face her crew. "The Council will not be merciful. We need to understand what they are capable of." Lieutenant Aaron's face was pale, his hands still trembling as he worked the terminal. "Captain, the energy signatures from the anomaly, they're fluctuating. I think the architects are communicating with the Council. Whatever happens next, it's going to happen fast." Maria swallowed hard. She had heard the rumors, the Council's judgment was swift, and it was final. For a race to break the Code, especially one as young and untested as humanity, the consequences were often catastrophic. Exile, enslavement, or even eradication. It wasn't just punishment, it was a message to the rest of the galaxy: never break the Code. Suddenly, the console beeped, and the comm system flared to life. The transmission was short but precise. A voice, cold and authoritative, cut through the air, speaking in a language that Maria could barely understand. Yet, somehow, it didn't matter. The meaning was clear, even without the translation. Humanity is called to the High Tribunal. Prepare for immediate transfer. Maria's blood ran cold. The High Tribunal, the highest court in the galaxy, where the most dire decisions were made. No one who had been summoned there had ever returned. The Council's judgment was final, and it wasn't just a legal matter, it was a death sentence for all intents and purposes. "We don't have much time," she said, her voice tight. "Everyone, prepare for boarding." The crew scrambled into action, trying to ready the ship as best they could, though Maria knew it was futile. There was no escape. No negotiation. The Council's ships would be here within moments, and there was nothing they could do to stop them. The architects had already made it clear that they had been watching, that the Ascendant had been marked the moment they breached the Code. And then, as if the galaxy itself had decided to hold its breath, a massive presence appeared on their sensors. It was unlike anything Maria had ever encountered, an enormous, void-like ship, blacker than the space around it, devoid of stars, and shimmering with an otherworldly energy that made the hairs on her neck stand on end. It was here. The Council had arrived. "We have to face them," Maria said softly, more to herself than anyone else. Her fists clenched at her sides as she looked toward the void outside. "We have no choice." Before anyone could respond, the ship's systems flickered, and a holographic image materialized in front of them. It was a being unlike anything Maria had seen, a tall, humanoid figure, its face partially obscured by intricate, glowing markings that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Its eyes were ancient and cold, radiating an intelligence that transcended anything human. "This is High Executor Therax of the Galactic Council," the being spoke, its voice like a thunderclap that rattled the very core of the ship. "You stand accused of breaking the Galactic Code. The punishment for this transgression is severe. We have come to deliver judgment." Maria stood tall, despite the sinking feeling in her chest. "We never intended to break the Code," she said, her voice firm. "We didn't know what we were dealing with. The library we discovered." Therax's eyes glowed brighter, interrupting her. "You did not need to know what you were dealing with. The code exists for a reason. Knowledge of the architects is forbidden. You have trespassed into realms that should never have been disturbed. Maria clenched her jaw. Then punish us. But know this, the knowledge in that library is not just a weapon. It's a key to understanding the very foundation of the galaxy. If you destroy us, you will only delay the inevitable. There was a moment of silence. The hologram of Therax seemed to consider her words, but when he spoke again, it was with an even greater authority. Your defiance is noted, he said, his voice colder than before. You have broken the code. The punishment will be delivered. However, Maria's heart skipped a beat. Was there hope? You may yet be spared, if you prove yourselves worthy of the knowledge you've claimed. A trial will be held. A test of your species' strength, intelligence, and heart. Succeed, and humanity may be allowed to remain among the stars. Therax paused, his expression unreadable. Fail, and your species will be erased from existence, as if you never existed at all. The transmission cut off, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Maria stood motionless, her mind racing. A trial. Humanity's future was now in the hands of the unknown. They had been given a chance, perhaps their only chance, to prove that they were worthy of the galaxy's knowledge. But what did the Council mean by a trial? And how could they, with their primitive technology and incomplete understanding, hope to survive what was coming? One thing was certain, humanity was about to face its greatest test. The Ascendant drifted in the void, tethered by the cold, implacable will of the Galactic Council. Maria Delgado stood in the command center, her eyes fixed on the cold, alien ships that surrounded them. The High Tribunal had spoken, and now their fate rested on an ancient trial, one that, for all they knew, could determine whether humanity would ever have a future in the stars. The crew stood silently behind her, tense and anxious. No one spoke. Words seemed inadequate for what they were facing. Humanity's very existence in the galaxy was at stake. To succeed in this trial, they would have to prove themselves worthy, not just to the Council, but to the architects themselves, the beings who had built the very foundation of the galaxy. Failure would erase them from history, as if they had never existed. Captain, Lieutenant Aaron said, breaking the silence. His voice was strained. We've analyzed the energy readings from the Council ship. It's immense. Far beyond anything we could hope to comprehend. I can't even get a lock on their weapons systems. It's as if their entire ship is alive. Maria nodded grimly, her fingers tapping nervously on the console. I don't care about their weapons. What matters is what happens next. We have no idea what kind of trial we're facing. Judging by the nature of the Council's response, I'm assuming it's not going to be easy, Officer 10 added, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity. The architects don't give second chances. Maria turned to face them, her voice steady but with an edge of urgency. We're going to have to outsmart them. Whatever this trial is, we can't afford to fail. Humanity has no backup plan. If we don't prove our worth, we'll be wiped out of the galactic record. The words hung in the air like an oppressive cloud, but Maria couldn't let the fear settle in. They had already broken the code, and now they had to make their case to the galaxy's highest authority. She wouldn't allow her crew to give up, not now. A sudden burst of static interrupted their thoughts. A new transmission flooded the bridge, its source unmistakable. The same towering figure of High Executor Therax appeared once more, his eyes glowing ominously. Humanity, prepare yourselves. The trial begins. The holographic image of Therax vanished, replaced by a swirling field of light. The entire ship shook, as if caught in a powerful current, and Maria staggered, grabbing onto the console to steady herself. The lights flickered, and the crew members gasped as the surroundings shifted. They weren't in the Ascendant anymore. The very fabric of reality seemed to bend and twist around them. Where are we? Lieutenant Aaron asked, his voice shaky as he looked around. The viewports had disappeared, replaced by an endless expanse of stars, each one swirling as if caught in a cosmic storm. Floating in the void, a massive structure appeared, an immense ring of ancient, shifting metal, glowing with ethereal light. It was like nothing they had ever seen. The very air around it hummed with an energy so pure and ancient that it made the hairs on Maria's neck stand on end. "We're inside the trial," Maria said, her voice low with awe. This is it." The structure before them pulsed with energy, and from its center, a voice boomed, louder than anything Maria had ever heard, its tone cold and detached. "To be worthy of the knowledge of the architects, you must prove your worth. You will face 3 trials, each designed to test your strength, intelligence, and heart. Succeed in all 3, and humanity will be granted the right to join the galactic community." The voice paused, as if savoring the moment. "Fail, and humanity will be wiped from existence, erased from the annals of history. Your species will be forgotten." A chill ran down Maria's spine, but she steeled herself. The first trial. They had no choice but to face it. Suddenly, the bridge of the ascendant vanished, replaced by a desolate landscape. A barren world stretched out before them, its surface cracked and torn, the sky a swirling mass of storm clouds. In the distance, a massive figure stood silhouetted against the storm, its size colossal, its form shifting in the turbulent air. The trial had begun. The voice boomed again, echoing across the desolate world. The first trial, strength. At that moment, the massive figure in the distance began to move toward them. Its form was humanoid, but its features were indistinct, blurred and shifting as though it were made of smoke and shadow. It loomed closer, and with each step, the ground beneath them quaked. The air crackled with energy. "We have to fight it," Maria said, her voice taut with urgency. "This is the trial." The crew scattered, scrambling to prepare themselves. Their weapons, their technology, none of it seemed to have any effect on the creature. The energy it radiated was too overwhelming. They had nothing to defend themselves with except their wits, their courage, and their strength. The creature charged, its form shifting rapidly, becoming a blur of movement. The storm that raged overhead seemed to grow more intense, its winds howling like 1,000 voices. Maria instinctively reached for her weapon, but it disintegrated in her hand. She was left with only her determination. "Captain, what do we do?" Officer Tan shouted, panic creeping into her voice. Maria scanned the scene quickly. The creature was fast, relentless, but there had to be something, some weakness in its form. The storm raged around them, and the air was thick with the smell of ozone. "Stay focused," Maria shouted. "We need to find a way to exploit its movements. It's not just a creature, it's part of the trial. The storm, the shifting form, it's all a puzzle. Look for patterns." As the creature lunged toward them, Maria saw it, a flicker in its form. For a fraction of a second, it hesitated, almost as if it were being manipulated by some unseen force. That was their chance. "Now! Attack!" Maria ordered. The crew sprang into action, using everything they had to strike at the creature. They moved as one, coordinating their efforts, exploiting its brief moments of hesitation. And slowly, but surely, they began to chip away at the creature's form. It wasn't just a physical battle. It was a test of their adaptability, their teamwork, and their ability to recognize weakness in the face of overwhelming force. The creature roared, a sound that shook the very air around them, but it began to falter. And then, with a final, coordinated strike, the creature shattered, its form dissolving into mist, leaving behind only silence. The storm dissipated, and the barren landscape began to fade. The voice returned, cold and detached. "The first trial is complete. Humanity has shown strength. But the second trial awaits." Maria wiped the sweat from her brow. They had survived the first trial, but there were still 2 more to face, and the Council's judgment would only grow more difficult from here. The galaxy was watching. Humanity's fate hung in the balance. The storm vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the crew of the Ascendant standing on a shifting plane of brilliant white light. The tension from the first trial still lingered in their muscles, but now, the true weight of what lay ahead pressed down upon them. The battle with the creature had been harrowing, but it was just the beginning. The voice had already spoken of the second trial, the trial of intelligence. Maria Delgado's heart raced. If the first trial had tested their strength, what would this one demand? Her crew stood in tense silence around her, their faces reflecting the same uncertainty. But there was no time to waste. The second trial was already beginning. The white light around them rippled, transforming into a massive, gleaming structure. It was a towering spire, like a twisted pillar of crystal, reaching impossibly high into the sky, surrounded by a labyrinth of transparent corridors and moving platforms. The whole structure seemed to pulse with energy, as if it were alive, waiting. The voice came again, reverberating through the air. The second trial, intelligence. To pass, you must solve the riddle of the architects. Fail, and you will be erased from existence. The words hung in the air like a warning. Maria steeled herself, turning to her crew. Listen carefully. This trial is a test of our ability to think, to solve puzzles, and to see beyond the obvious. We need to stay focused and work together. As the crew nodded and prepared themselves, a new sound filled the air, a low hum, like machinery coming to life. The ground beneath their feet shifted again, and the labyrinth began to reassemble itself. Walls of crystal rose up, creating an intricate maze that seemed to twist in impossible directions. Some paths opened, while others closed, and strange symbols appeared on the walls, cryptic, angular designs that shifted and changed as they looked at them. Maria's eyes narrowed. This is it. We have to solve the puzzle to move forward. The team hesitated for a moment, but Maria led the way into the labyrinth, her mind already racing through possibilities. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter as they passed, responding to their presence as though the structure itself was testing them. Each symbol was unique, but they all shared a common trait, a repeating pattern, a code within a code. We need to decipher this, Maria said, her voice steady. Every symbol is part of a larger puzzle. Keep your eyes open. Lieutenant Aaron, who had been the ship's most skilled technician, stepped forward and studied one of the symbols carefully. It's a language. A type of ancient script. If we follow the pattern, we might be able to map it out. They moved deeper into the labyrinth, working together to interpret the cryptic messages and symbols that lined the walls. Each puzzle was more complex than the last, requiring different combinations of logic, memory, and abstract thinking. Some of the challenges seemed impossible at first, as if the answers lay just beyond their grasp. But with each success, the walls shifted and reformed, opening new pathways and revealing new layers of the labyrinth. They were making progress, but Maria could feel the weight of time pressing on them. The voice of the architects had warned them, failure meant erasure. Captain, Officer Tan said, her voice strained. I think I've figured it out. These symbols, they're not just a language. They're equations, mathematical formulas that reveal the structure of the universe itself. Maria's heart skipped a beat. Of course. The architects had created the very fabric of reality. The solution to the puzzle wouldn't just be about memorizing symbols or deciphering codes, it would require understanding the fundamental nature of existence itself. They needed to think bigger. Maria took a deep breath and focused. Everyone, think of the larger picture. This isn't just a riddle. This is a test of how well we understand the universe. These symbols, these equations, they're a reflection of the laws that govern everything. We need to put it all together. The crew worked with renewed focus. The pressure was mounting, but they were beginning to see it, patterns in the chaos. The labyrinth was revealing itself to them, the pieces falling into place. Each solved equation brought them closer to the center, to the core of the spire. Finally, they reached the heart of the labyrinth. At its center stood a single, floating pedestal, upon which rested a glowing sphere, its surface shimmering with endless possibilities. Maria approached it cautiously, the crew following her. The voice of the architects echoed once more, cold and imperious. You have solved the puzzle. You have shown intelligence worthy of the architect's design. The second trial is complete. But beware, the final trial will test your heart. The voice paused, and Maria felt a chill run through her. The final trial, heart, she had no idea what that meant, but she knew it was the most dangerous of all. Strength could be tested in battle, intelligence could be measured in logic, but the heart? The heart was something no one could predict. As the pedestal disintegrated into a cloud of particles, the labyrinth began to collapse around them, dissolving into nothingness. The crew barely had time to react before they were pulled into a new environment, an entirely different world. They found themselves standing in a field, beneath a sky that seemed impossibly vast. The air was crisp, and the ground beneath their feet was soft and green. Yet, despite the calm beauty of the place, something was wrong. Maria felt a tightness in her chest, a sense of dread that she couldn't explain. Before her stood a figure, a woman, no older than Maria herself, with eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. She was familiar, too familiar. Maria's heart lurched in recognition. "Anna?" Maria whispered. The woman nodded, her expression unreadable. "Captain. I've been waiting for you." Maria's pulse quickened. The woman who stood before her was someone she had lost, someone who had died years ago, back on Earth. Anna had been her closest friend, her confidant. And now, here she was, standing in front of her as though nothing had changed. "What is this?" Maria demanded, stepping back. "This isn't real. You're not real." Anna's expression softened, but there was something distant in her eyes. "What if I am, Maria? What if everything you've ever wanted is here? What if you could have everything you've ever lost, everything you've ever loved, in exchange for everything else?" The voice of the architects cut through the air, its tone final. "The final trial, heart. Will you sacrifice what you hold most dear for the greater good? Choose now, or humanity will be lost." Maria's mind spun. This was the true test, the test of her humanity, her connection to the crew, and to the galaxy. Could she choose the greater good, or would her heart betray her? She took a deep breath, stepping toward Anna. "I can't choose you. Not like this." The figure of Anna flickered and vanished, leaving Maria standing alone. And with that, the final trial began. The vast field around Maria seemed to waver, as though the very fabric of reality had been stretched thin. The air was heavy, suffused with an unbearable sadness. The sky, once so clear and serene, now appeared dark and tumultuous, swirling with unspoken emotion. But Maria stood tall, her fists clenched at her sides, resolute in her choice. Anna, the woman she had lost, had been a test, a temptation, a reflection of humanity's deepest fears and desires. The trial of the heart was never about logic or strength. It was about sacrifice, about the power of attachment, and the will to choose something greater than one's own personal pain. Maria had made her choice. She had rejected the illusion. But as Anna's image faded away, the voice of the architects rang through the air once more, its cold resonance reverberating like the sound of an ancient bell tolling. "You have chosen, but will it be enough? The trial is not yet complete. You have faced loss, but now you must face the greatest test of all, the ultimate cost." Before Maria could react, the ground beneath her shifted again, and the world around her melted away, replaced by something utterly different. She found herself standing on a precipice, the edge of a jagged cliff overlooking a vast, swirling abyss. The sky above was a deep, unnatural red, and the air shimmered with an otherworldly heat. At the center of the chasm, floating just within reach, was a dark figure, a shadow wrapped in darkness, its form barely discernible but brimming with an ancient, malignant power. And then, Maria realized, with a chill creeping down her spine, this was no mere illusion. This figure represented the ultimate price. The voice of the architects once again echoed, its tone both accusing and instructive. "This is your final trial, Maria Delgado, and you are not alone. Before you, your greatest fear takes form. The one thing you fear losing above all else, your crew. The people you have sworn to protect. The very heart of humanity's future in the galaxy." To complete this trial, you must sacrifice them. Choose who will fall. Maria's breath caught in her throat. The abyss before her seemed to pulse with the force of 1,000 unspeakable choices, and the figure hovering above it, the source of all this torment, now spoke directly to her. Sacrifice one of your crew members. Choose one to fall into the abyss. Only by doing so will you prove your worth to the Council. The galaxy will be yours to command. But this choice will define your species. The figure's voice seemed to seep into Maria's very being, twisting her thoughts. The abyss yawned below her, endless and inviting. And yet, she knew, deep within her soul, that she could not, and would not, make such a choice. Not again. Not after everything humanity had been through. Her heart hammered in her chest, her mind spinning as the weight of the decision crushed down upon her. She could feel the presence of her crew behind her, each one watching, waiting, their eyes filled with the same confusion, the same dread. They had already been through so much together. They had survived the horrors of space, the unforgiving laws of the galaxy, and the threat of total annihilation by the Council. They had fought side by side, trusted one another, and never once hesitated to give everything for the mission. Could she truly choose one of them to fall into the abyss? Her thoughts began to blur, and her gaze flitted from one crew member to another. Lieutenant Aaron, so steadfast and loyal, Officer Tan, always fierce and determined, and the others, each of them irreplaceable in their own right. How could she possibly choose? How could she betray them like this? The figure in the abyss grew closer, its shadow stretching across the cliffside, as if eager to consume her crew, to swallow them whole. Maria clenched her fists tighter, determination blazing in her eyes. No, she said, her voice low but unwavering. I will not make this choice. The abyss trembled. The dark figure seemed to recoil, as if it had not anticipated this answer. The air around Maria crackled with energy, her defiance filling the void with an unexpected power. You cannot have them, Maria continued, her words gaining strength with each syllable. I will not sacrifice one of my crew. We are humanity. We stand together. We choose together. As she spoke, the winds howled around her, the red sky swirling and darkening. The ground beneath her feet began to quake, but she held firm, her heart a fortress of resolve. The figure in the abyss roared, its form writhing in anger. But then, a shift occurred, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. The darkness began to recede. The figure began to fade. The abyss slowly contracted, its overwhelming power waning. Maria's defiance had struck at the very core of the trial. The voice of the architects, no longer cold, but strangely distant, spoke one final time. You have proven your worth, Captain Maria Delgado. You have chosen unity over sacrifice. This trial, the final test of the heart, is complete. Humanity has passed. The ground beneath Maria's feet stilled, the swirling red sky fading into a soft, warm light. Slowly, the world around her returned to normal, no longer a place of torment, but a place of resolution. The chasm vanished, replaced by the familiar view of the Ascendant hovering in space, its crew gathered on the bridge. Maria looked around at her team, her heart swelling with pride. They had made it. Together, they had survived the trial of strength, the trial of intelligence, and the trial of the heart. They had proven themselves worthy of the architect's knowledge. And they were not alone. A ripple of energy passed through the ship as the space around them seemed to shimmer and shift. The presence of the Galactic Council, looming in the distance, finally spoke once more. Humanity has passed the trials. You have earned your place in the galaxy. The code will be rewritten. Maria turned to her crew, her voice steady with pride. We did it. We're not just survivors. We're part of something greater now. They had passed the trials. Humanity's place among the stars was secure. But as Maria gazed out into the infinite darkness of space, she knew one thing above all else: this was only the beginning. The silence aboard the Ascendant was unlike anything Maria had ever felt before. The weight of their victory, the collective relief, and the dawning realization of what they had achieved hung heavily in the air. Humanity, once an insignificant species on a tiny blue planet, had not only survived the trials of the architects but had proven themselves worthy of a place in the galactic order. Maria stood at the helm of the ship, her eyes fixed on the stars beyond. The crew had gathered, their faces a mixture of disbelief and triumph. They had faced the unimaginable, had stood before the ancient architects and survived the 3 trials: strength, intelligence, and heart. And now, the galaxy was theirs to explore. The voice of the architects, deep and reverberating, echoed once more across the comm system. Humanity has passed the trials. The code will be rewritten. The old order no longer holds. A new age has begun. Maria's heart raced. The enormity of their success was only now beginning to sink in. The galaxy, the vast, star-spanning empire that had been ruled by the Council and the architects for eons, was about to change. They had shattered the old rules. The code that had governed the galaxy for millennia was being rewritten. Humanity had broken the shackles that had once confined them, and the possibilities stretched out before them like an uncharted ocean. But even in the midst of triumph, there was still uncertainty. The architects were ancient, their power immense. The Galactic Council, though shaken, would not fade quietly into history. There would be resistance, there would be factions, and there would be those who sought to maintain the status quo. Maria knew this. She had seen the greed and ambition of the Council firsthand. And yet, as she turned to her crew, she saw something in their eyes: hope. Hope that they could make a difference. Hope that humanity could bring something new to the galaxy, something the architects had never foreseen. A future not dictated by fear, power, or the whims of ancient beings, but a future shaped by choice, by unity, and by heart. Maria took a deep breath and spoke, her voice strong, commanding, and filled with the weight of their shared journey. "Listen up, everyone," she said. "The galaxy isn't going to change overnight. There will be those who try to stop us, to keep the old systems in place. But we're no longer just a species on the fringes of the galaxy. We've proven our strength, our intelligence, and our hearts. And now, we get to decide what happens next." Lieutenant Aaron stepped forward, his expression serious but filled with pride. "What's our first move, Captain?" Maria glanced out at the stars, her mind racing with the possibilities. They were no longer confined to the tiny corner of space they had once called home. The galaxy was open to them. The Council had fallen. The architects, though still a presence, had seen the potential of humanity. There were civilizations to ally with, enemies to face, and untold mysteries waiting to be explored. "We make our mark," Maria said, her eyes glinting with the fire of resolve. "We don't just settle for what's been handed to us. We build a new future, a future where humanity isn't bound by the code or any authority, but where we stand shoulder to shoulder with the rest of the galaxy. We seek alliances, not through force or fear, but through trust and shared purpose. And above all, we never forget who we are." Officer Tan, always pragmatic, nodded in agreement. "We're more than survivors now. We're architects of our own destiny." The crew exchanged looks of resolve. They were ready. Just then, a new signal came through, one unlike anything they had ever heard before. A pulse of energy that hummed through the ship's systems, a communication from an unknown source. The voice that spoke was calm, serene, and utterly alien. "Humanity has proven itself. The Council has fallen. The code is indeed rewritten. But know this, young species, your journey is far from over. The galaxy is vast, and you have only taken the first step. Do not think that you are the only ones to challenge the old order. Others will come, those who still cling to the old ways. Your choices will shape the future. Choose wisely, for the road ahead is fraught with unknowns." Maria's fingers hovered over the console, her thoughts racing. The voice wasn't hostile, but it was clear: humanity had just made its first move in a much larger game. There would be other trials, other challenges, but the galaxy was no longer an insurmountable obstacle. Humanity had proven it could stand toe-to-toe with the most ancient forces in the universe. "We will choose wisely," Maria said, her voice firm. "But we will choose boldly. We've already broken the code. We're not going to stop now." With a final surge of energy, the Ascendant powered up, its engines humming to life as the ship charted its course toward the unknown. The crew gathered at their stations, ready to face whatever came next. They were no longer just a ship lost in space. They were humanity's vanguard, the first of many to challenge the cosmos, to rewrite the narrative of the stars. Maria stood tall at the helm, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The galaxy was vast, but humanity was no longer small. The galaxy had been shaken by their presence, and the old powers had been forced to take notice. The dawn of a new era was upon them. And humanity's story was only just beginning.